Hey everyone, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. You're here with me, Brittany Miles, on Miles to Go with Brittany Miles, and I'm happy to be here. And I forgot the last part of my show title, How to Lose to Gain It All. And yes, I am happy to be here with you today. We've been on such an incredible journey together in the past few weeks, in the past few months. And a lot of things we've been talking about revolve around mindfulness with self-care, self-love, and self-compassion. And that's something that I think is important. As I shared in my last few shows, that I am a parent of a child with severe mental illness, and it's a struggle. And right now, we're struggling this week as a family. There's just a lot going on, lots of emotions swirling, lots of tension, lots of anxiety. And this is why I think this episode is really important. It's about giving yourself the space for self-love, self-care, and self-compassion. So the title of today's show is Permission Slips. I had to kind of breathe there for a second because I had a couple of thoughts swirling. So I'm going to take another breath. And another. Because I'm in a safe place and secure with you guys. So as I said, today's show is called Permission Slips, and the genesis for this show idea came from my writing class. And shout out to you, Anne, my writing instructor. And we were talking about, as writers, giving ourselves permission to do whatever, to be creative, to have generative ideas, or not to write, or write about whatever. And one of our journal prompts, which could have been related to our work as writers or just to our writing life or just as our lives, was, what promises do you keep to yourself? So the prompt was, again, what promises do you keep to yourself? And that's pretty powerful, because as wives, mothers, sisters, daughters, aunts, friends, lovers, wives, partners, fur moms, we have lots of promises as women that we say that we will keep. There are lots of secrets that we say that we will keep, because that is part and parcel of our, I think, our DNA as women, in terms of our ability to provide that sense of comfort and succor, if you will, to our community, to our families. But how many promises do we actually keep to ourselves? And as we approach Mother's Day, and people, however you show up in that spectrum, is like, as a mother, I often think, well, how many promises do I keep to myself? A lot of the promises I say I'm going to keep are related to, you know what, I'm going to sit down after dinner. I'm going to sit down. I'm not going to get up. I'm not going to just run when I think I need to sweep or quickly mop up that spot in the kitchen, or I'm just going to run the dishwasher, and then, oh, I could put in this load of laundry, which will put me a day ahead, so that we'll have clean clothes and my daughter can then fold them, or I could clean out the dog dish while I'm doing that as well. You see where I'm going? It's like, once you start, that promise just falls apart, and the promise becomes a to-do list. So again, that my promises to myself end up being a to-do list. I have enough to do. It's taking that time to step back and say, no, no, no. The promise you need to keep is to yourself, to do things that are good for you. So promises I like to keep to myself are that, again, I'm going to get some rest. I'm going to stay in bed on Saturday. That's it. Mom's day off. I'm staying in bed. You know, you guys can come in here with me. You can join me, but this is going to be the source of all operations. Or mom's closing her door for 30 minutes, and I will be watching makeup and fragrance videos on YouTube, or reading some of the folks I like to on Twitter, or just talking to my friends online, or perhaps doing nothing, or perhaps meditating. But I need that 30 minutes to do whatever. No questions asked. So it's wanting for myself to keep those promises. And again, I come back to, why don't I keep those promises to myself? Why do I not place importance on that? If I promise something to my child, I usually time box it. She sets a reminder, and then we talk about it. And I do that with friends as well. It's like, well, I've made this promise. I'll put it in my calendar. I'll put it on my task list, my to-do list, which is ever lengthening, like everybody else's. And I make that commitment because I honor my word. And I think that's another key thing, is honoring your word. But do you honor your word to yourself? And it's so easy to forget about yourself and honoring yourself. And I came across this quote on Instagram, and I hope it's truly attributed to Maya Angelou. I did a little bit of research. But here's what Dr. Angelou said: I learned a long time ago, the wisest thing I can do is be on my own side. I'll read it again. I learned a long time ago, the wisest thing I can do is be on my own side. Isn't that breathtaking? In its simplicity, its honesty, honesty, integrity, it just grounds you into wherever you are in this moment. And it's true. We should be on our own side, but a lot of us are our own worst enemies. And I say this with putting myself at the top of that list. And like, I could tell you every positive thing about yourself, but I will find every negative about myself, which in turn means that I'm not going to honor my promises that I keep to myself. Why? If Olivia, our lovely producer, Olivia and I were talking about something and she had a concern and we wanted, she wanted some insight, I would probably, again, tell her every fabulous thing about her and give her lots of insight and resources and thoughts, and just support, or just hold space if she needed just that. But guess what? Do I give all of the insights and resources and feedback and hold just space for me? I'd be lying if I said yes. I think where I do hold space is, I hold space here. This is the show, and where I get to live out my integrity. And y'all think these shows are for you, which they are, but a lot of it, it's for me, because I get to go back to myself and, you know, sort of physician heal thyself, and make sure that I'm living an authentic life and having authentic experiences. So today, that's what I really want to talk to. What's the barrier to keeping promises to ourselves? Why is it so hard to give ourselves permission just to be? Why is it so hard? What are those issues that block that? Because when stuff like this comes up, it means there's something else blocking that. There's some belief system underneath that needs to be cleared up. So like, we talk a lot about those sticky, ooey gooey places that where hard emotions and hard belief systems live. Let's go there today, because I think that's what's holding me back, and maybe you back, from giving yourself permission just to do the things that you want to do, giving yourself permission to have the space to be who you are, or just have the space to do nothing, or the space or the courage to have the conversations you need to have with certain people in your life. And with that, stay tuned. We're going into a break. You are here with me, Brittany Miles, on Miles to Go with Brittany Miles, How to Lose to Gain It All. And today we're talking about permission slips. Do you keep your promises to yourself? Are promises made and delivered? Stay tuned. We'll learn more. Hey everyone, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. You're here with me, Brittany Miles, the host of Miles to Go with Brittany Miles, How to Lose to Get It All. And yes, today we're talking about permission slips. And this is not a hall pass. That's a whole nother conversation. We're talking about permission slips. So we're just going to keep this PG or G. And it's really about, do you keep promises to yourself? Politicians often talk about promises made, promises kept. So, could you say the same about yourself to yourself? The promises that you make to yourself, do you keep them? And if you don't, why not? So, the genesis of this show came from my writing instructor, Anne. Hey, Anne. And last week we had a journal prompt about how do you keep promises to yourself and what keeps you from keeping promises to yourself. And then the key question that underlies that is like, what toll does that take on you, mind, body, and soul? And that's like, right? In the last segment, we were talking about a quote from Dr. Angelou where she said she learned a long time ago that it was best to be on her own side. And that's pretty powerful and grounding. And I think directly relates to what we're talking about. Because if you can't keep a promise to yourself, are you truly on your own side? Are you filling yourself with self love, self compassion, self care? I mean, we all do due diligence about talking about that. But are you doing, if you can't keep a simple promise to not respond to texts for 15 minutes, are you really on your own side when you know that that's highly interruptive and it causes you to be overly reactive? Or for me, that you're going to, when you say you're done for the evening with chores, sitting down for 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes and not do anything, even if you see a dust particle blowing across, the grain of your carpet. You're not going to go and pick up your Roomba and say, go, and then find other things to do, because there is a toll that is taken on you, truly on a mind, body, and spirit level. There is something underneath all of this, like if you break the promise, there's a whole belief system, fear, sense of loss, scarcity, what have you, that is underpinning you not being on your own best side. And as we've talked about in the past few months, that's all the sticky, ooey gooey places that we don't really want to go, but that's where we do need to go. And those places, at least for me, as Olivia and I were talking about in the break, really are centered in loss and scarcity. If I don't do something about X, Y, or Z, I won't be perceived as good enough, right? And I will lose face or favor with people that I haven't seen in 25 or 30 years, or people that I really don't care about. But it's still somehow programmed in me that I have to be people pleasing. And that comes as being a woman, an only child, my family of origin. I am inherently a people pleaser in my personal life and in my work life. I hate for people to be upset or angry with me. I still hear the dictator voice in my head that's telling me I am not good enough. I'm not smart enough. My house is not clean enough. That's my big thing. Because I'm just I'm just not good enough. What I am is a unique expression of divine consciousness or God. And I'm heavily flawed as a human being, but I'm a spirit having a human experience. And that might sound like a little bit of new age gobbledygook, but all of it to say is that I'm human and I'm doing the best that I can. Uh, the voices that help to break the promise don't realize that I'm a single parent raising a child with severe mental illness, and I'm doing it all on my own. I work full time. I work there, and then I work in the home, and I'm also a caretaker, and I take very little time for myself. So constantly browbeating myself is really just not conducive to me having a really good life. And that's the toll that breaking the promise takes on me. It takes a toll on me emotionally, where I'm in a constant state of stress, and I easily go from things are okay to things are not okay. Things are okay, things are not okay. And I do take time when I'm able to get out of that pattern, because that is my pattern. I am able to take the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding meditation that we talk about, just to get myself back in the present moment and to see what's around me and what's reality. I take those moments of getting grounded in the present moment, connecting back to breath. And then I'm able to see again and again, sort of that 3, 2, 1 process that we talk about, is seeing what I can do or not do. Some things are not for me, some things are just like thoughts in my head. And because they are so programmed, they're tapes, they're recordings, they just go on and on and on. They're not real. Your mind just is made to think, and it is pretty much programmed for disaster because that keeps us safe as humans, and we just haven't outgrown that as a species. However, you don't have to believe everything you think. So therefore, I do have the space and the opportunity to actually honor my promises that I keep to myself. So I said a lot there. And I think simply to say is that you can tell yourself that your brain is lying to you. And we've had a whole show on that, where the thoughts that you're thinking are not true and you don't have to believe them and buy into them. And that you can sit in the present moment, breathe, connect, and then get your life together. Or as the kids just say, get your life. And it's so true, because you can get your life in that moment and you can ease the toll that you're taking on your mind. With your body, we all understand fight or flight, and fight or flight and freeze, where you can get so entrenched and ingrained in all of the stories in your head. That's why you break the promise, because you think something bad is going to happen. And you just get stuck, so paralyzed to the point where you can't even move, you can't even do anything, because you think a catastrophe is happening. The catastrophe is in your mind, and your brain is lying to you yet again. So creating that sense of stress, the stress response, the increase of cortisol, the increase of blood pressure, your mind just kind of basically blowing up, headaches, backaches, jaw, muscle aches, all of that can be stopped by just breathing and just grounding and getting into the present moment. And then realizing, yes, I can take 15 minutes, a quarter of an hour, in the multitude of hours that I have lived and will continue to live in my life, just to just be. And it's okay. And everything else around me can sit and stay. Your kids can just figure it out on their own. Your spouse can figure it out. Your coworkers can figure it out. One of my favorite expressions for work is, your priority, your emergency is not my priority. So I'll say that again. Your emergency is not my priority. I'm happy to support as much as I can, but there are other things that I'm doing. Use that. Use that in your life to help you keep promises to yourself. And as I say this, I'm thinking I need to do this for myself. I really do. And just remembering those ways where you can gently push back and allow others to do for themselves, because they can. You don't have to do everything, you don't have to be everything. And as you start to understand that you have agency and you can keep promises to yourself, then you can begin to trust yourself. Going back to Dr. Angelou's quote, is that I've learned long ago that it's wisest to be on my own side, and that no truer words were spoken, because that's trusting yourself, believing in yourself. And once you trust yourself, that means you love yourself, you have self compassion, and you're going to give yourself time for self care. Then and only then, promises will be kept. So we're talking about permission slips and keeping ourselves accountable for promises we make to ourselves. Can we trust ourselves? It sounds like if we use our basic mindfulness practices, yes, we can. So we're going into a segment or into a break. And in the next segment, we're going to be talking about how do you keep yourself accountable? How do you make this real and true for yourself? So stay tuned to learn more. I'm Brittany Miles, host of Miles to Go with Brittany Miles, how to lose to gain it all. And we're talking about permission slips. Stay tuned. Hey, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. You are here with me, Brittany Miles, on Miles to Go with Brittany Miles, how to lose to gain it all. I hope you like my little dancing. It just helps me to get amped and excited about the show because I always am. So, today we are talking about promises made and promises kept. Um, an applause line for a lot of politicians, but we're talking using that as kind of a launching pad for our discussion today, which is about permission slips, giving ourselves permission or promises that we keep to ourselves. Can we trust ourselves to keep promises to ourselves? And part of that is a quote that I've been using throughout the show from Dr. Angelou, who said, I learned long ago it was wisest to be on my own side. And I wonder if we all are on our own side because it's so easy for us to just renege on promises to ourselves as mothers, aunts, cousins, wives, lovers, fur moms, just a person on the planet. We make commitments to others, put it on on our to-do list or put it in our calendars or however they track it. But you make sure because your word is your bond and you deliver for someone else. But when it's time to deliver for you, do you? Do you hold yourself in the same high regard and esteem and value as you do someone else? Because I know for myself is that I'll make promises until the cows come home and I will under promise and over deliver just so that I can gain someone else's favor and say that I did that. It's part of making me look good and feel good, and it's also the people pleaser in I. So it's part of that belief system, that sticky, ooey gooey place that underpins this need to outperform for others and underperform for myself. And as we've been discussing, that's not healthy and that's not good because that takes a toll on me in body, mind, and spirit, where I don't get the places for rest, both physically and mentally. I don't get a place of setting, I don't get to set boundaries. And that's what keeping promises to yourself is about. It's really about setting boundaries that mom's going to take 15 minutes just to do nothing. Or with your spouse, I am going to need a day, a mom's day off, or I'm just going to need my own time where I'm going to be out of the house. Or I'm taking this writing class and everyone can do without me for 2 hours once a week for 8 weeks. Or I'm finally going to finish my doctorate. I'm starting the steps to do that. So honoring yourself, honoring your gifts, honoring the things that make you are important. So now, how do you keep yourself accountable? That's a really great question. I don't really have an answer. It's an open discussion question, to be honest. I think um, to keep yourself accountable, it's writing it down. If it's digitally, if it's literally like a post-it that says, I'm giving it like a permission slip where it's like, and you put on the refrigerator, you know, Brittany takes 15 minutes every day at this time at 6 o'clock, and she does nothing. She's available after that time. Is it journaling or is it talking to someone? I think those are all things to explore. I think developing accountability is developing it with yourself first. Everything else is an external actor, and that's how you make it real. But accountability is really an inside job, and it really isn't inherently dependent on anybody else because you have to value you. as we were talking before, it's like it's about boundaries. That's what permission and promises are. It's a boundary. So if you have belief systems where you don't believe that you deserve to have guardrails around who has access to you and your time and your energy, then that's a problem. And that's something for me to work on as well. I do not keep myself outside of this. I have not cracked the code on this. I have sticky, gooey places where I'm still a people pleaser. I'm 54. Maybe I'll outgrow it at some point, but I'm working on it. It's a growth edge. I don't try to beat myself up over it because that defeats the purpose, but I am learning about boundaries. I create boundaries around the show and running the show and what I expect my family to do while I am having this lovely discussion with all of you. I set boundaries around my work hours with my employers. I set boundaries around how I can be accessed with my friends. I'm like, do not call me before 7 a.m. unless, it's a dire emergency, or after 10 p.m. because it's a dire emergency, right? Um, I don't like people to pop up to my house. Like, we have to, like, just don't swing by because that's just not cool with me. But creating those boundaries, those are promises to myself of like, this is how I want to protect my space. This is how I want to guard my space. How I wish to have my daughter and I to have discussions and how she addresses me. Um, those are boundaries, right? Between parent and child of like, this is what the expected behavior is. With my doggo, I have boundaries. No, you will not, you will not sit with me on my bed. No, I don't want you to sleep with me, right? That's a boundary. He can be angry and upset about that. That's okay. But life will go on for him as a dog. He will still get all of his treats. But I think you can see that the accountability is an inside job like everything else. Everything else it's a thought exercise. It's about valuing yourself. These are all skills that we're learning and they ladder upon each other. I think if one starts to learn to love themselves and think, or let me step back, think of them as thinking of themselves as worthy of love, worthy of the love that they express to others. And that's a big one for me, is that realizing you are worthy of the love that you express to others, then you can create the boundaries. Other people will figure it out. Will push and pressure test your boundaries, but that's okay. You can push and pressure test back because that shows you that you are loving yourself and you're taking care of yourself, because you can't keep up the pace, you can't keep up the toll. It's just, it's just, it's science. What can I tell you? It's science, it's math, right? Because the toll that breaking every promise to you takes a toll on your body, mind, and spirit. And sometimes it's just hard to get going. I can say that this week, again, I think I said at the top of the show, we're having a really difficult week this week in our family. And part of me is trying to keep up with the promises to myself. But there are places where I let them go. And I was like, nope. I tried to hold on to these things and I am suffering for it. I'm suffering through sleep. I'm suffering through stress. But as I talk this through, I'm realizing the more I let go of trying to control, I can keep my promise of just, let's just see what happens. Instead of trying to drive everything to conclusion, it's just letting stuff go. Right? That's a promise I keep to myself. It's just letting stuff go. And in those quiet, spare moments, you'll hear that inner voice telling you, let go, be silent, right? Um, a promise I have to myself is I don't have to solve everything. So just be quiet and just listen to people. Another promise I have for myself is just hold space for people. Again, don't solve their problems. So again, when I hear that still small voice, I realize I can honor myself, and that by doing what I'm doing, I'm holding my own self accountable to my promise. And as much as if I can keep my promises to myself, giving myself these permission slips, if you will, my life becomes a lot easier, like tons easier. And I'm in the flow of life. Well, I am Brittany Miles, host of Miles to Go, How to Lose to Gain It All. And today we're talking about permission slips and how do we keep promises to ourselves, right? As politicians say, promises made, promises kept. But do we really do that for ourselves? How do we hold ourselves accountable for these promises that we make to ourselves? And what we just discussed, it's all an inside job, and it's all about boundaries. And in our next segment, we're going to talk about making it real, which we talked a little bit about here. So stay tuned and we'll talk more. Hey everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. I am still dancing. Um, I am Brittany Miles, host of Miles to Go, How to Lose to Gain It All. And we are talking about permission slips today. And do you keep the promises that you make to yourself? And if you don't, why? I think this is true of every person. I'll speak for myself, is that I will under promise and over deliver to commit for my commitments for others. I will keep those promises. But if it's a promise I make for myself that I will take 15 minutes after dinner not to do any chores, I won't do it. And what we discussed today is why. Why is that? Why are other people more important and more valuable to us? And the toll it takes on our body, minds, and spirit on not keeping these promises. And I think what it is a lack of boundaries. It's part of that sticky, ooey gooey feelings that we talk about here. And not allowing ourselves to be loved, by not thinking that we are as valuable as the other people we express love to, or friendship, or camaraderie with. And it's about us, taking that accountability internally to say, yeah, I am important. Yeah, I do deserve love. And yes, I do deserve a break. I do deserve time for things that make me me, that enrich my life, because if as my life is enriched, I enrich the lives of others. So the accountability starts with us creating those boundaries and realizing that you are deserving of those boundaries and of love. So how do we make that real? So we touched upon this a little bit in the last segment. I think the ways that we make it real are just visual aids. So something you could do is take little sticky pad like I have here. Here are my show notes on my pad. I live on Post-its, which is a bit scary. But writing down, I give myself permission to, and fill in the blank, and put it someplace where you could see it. It could be on your nightstand, it could be on your bed, it could be on your vanity mirror, desktop, computer, phone. You could have digital post-its for your laptop or your phone, wherever you can see it, and realize that you give yourself permission. So it's a constant reminder. You could physically put it on the refrigerator just to announce to your family, or if you guys have a communication vehicle like a family whiteboard, put that there. Letting your spouse know that you are going to be doing X, Y, and Z, and just saying, this is it. I'm taking, like, I don't have to ask you for permission for this. I'm just going to do this, right? Letting your kids know, letting your family know that this is what I'm doing, right? You can just, if you're a calendar person, just block out your Saturday, block out your Sunday. Just like, I'm not, so you don't put any like family commitments there. You don't put church commitments, or spiritual community commitments there, or PTA, whatever have you, what excuse me, what other events that you would normally fill up there for others. Put yourself first, because that's important. Put yourself first, and just let them know that's a boundary. Just let them know, as the kids say, let them know. You could also journal, take the journal prompt. What is the cost of me keeping my promise to myself? What's the cost of me not honoring the promises to myself? What happens to my mind? What happens to my body? What happens to my spirit? Keep it centered on you, not how it impacts others, but just how it impacts you. And start that will help that journey and helping that inside voice to come out. You can meditate. Maybe make this the focus of a meditation. You could use this as a thought on a walking meditation. You could just have it in a sitting meditation. Play with it. See what works for you. You could try journaling with your non-dominant hand and with the same questions and see what answers come up for you. That you could just try some automatic writing where your hand doesn't leave the paper and you just write, and see what comes up. And as you start this practice of making it real, you'll start to see the places where you stop. I like to call them the stopping places. That's those ooey gooey belief systems that we all have that inhibit or limit our growth and our changes in behavior. So maybe you'll start to see some of that, and that will bump up next to that. Maybe talk to a friend about it. Just bring it up. Hey, I'm noticing this about myself. I'd like to kind of talk to you about that, and just kind of just chat. Something, if you have a therapist or a group, talk to them about it. I don't know, but I think opening yourself up to places where you can make this real helps the accountability again, because you deserve the boundaries and you also deserve this self-love, and it also just reinforces that you are important to you. And with that, I'd like to close with, we all say promises made, promises kept. And we kind of laugh it off, but we shouldn't. Promises made and promises kept to yourself are incredibly important. You deserve the love, compassion, and support that only you can give you. You are in the longest relationship of your life with yourself. Love yourself. And with that, take care. I'll see you in another 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Miles to Go with Brittany Miles. How to lose to gain it all. Tune in live every second and fourth Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com, where Brittany Miles teaches you how to lose to gain it all with the healing power of surrender. Are you ready to lead a happier life? For more information or to connect with Brittany, visit miles2gocoaching.com. That's Miles with the number 2 GO coaching.com.